The bass reverberated through the soles of my worn-out sneakers as I balanced 3 martini glasses on my tray. Sweat trickled down my back beneath the tight black uniform that all servers at Eclipse were required to wear. 6 weeks into this job, and I still wasn't used to the weight of men's stares following me across the floor. "Table 12, Hazel. Don't spill this time," Marco, the floor manager, hissed as he passed me. I nodded, swallowing the sharp retort that rose in my throat. I needed this job more than I needed my dignity. That's what leaving a marriage with nothing but the clothes on your back will do to you. The club's darkness was a blessing and a curse, hiding the dark circles beneath my eyes, but making it nearly impossible to navigate between the tightly packed tables. Eclipse wasn't just any nightclub. It was the nightclub in the city, where the elite came to see and be seen, where money flowed as freely as the imported champagne, and where people like me existed only to serve and remain invisible. I carefully placed each glass down, my hands trembling slightly. 3 cosmopolitans, I announced, though the women barely acknowledged me, too engrossed in their conversation about someone's recent divorce. Divorce. The word still stung. It had been 6 months since I'd left Richard. 6 months of rebuilding a life he'd spent years dismantling. 6 months of ignoring his texts threatening to make me regret it if I didn't come back. A ripple moved through the club, subtle but unmistakable. The music didn't stop, but it seemed to recede, like the ocean pulling back before a tsunami. The VIP section, separated from the main floor by velvet ropes and mountain-sized security guards, was being prepared. Someone important was coming. I didn't pay much attention. The rich and famous weren't my concern. Making enough tips to pay this month's rent for my shoebox apartment was. "Hey, another round here?" A man at table 14 snapped his fingers at me like I was a dog. I plastered on a smile and headed to the bar, handing the order to Danny, the bartender who had become my only friend in this new life. "You look dead on your feet," she said, expertly mixing a whiskey sour. "How many doubles have you pulled this week?" 4. I rubbed my temple. "But I need the money." She nodded, understanding in her eyes. She knew pieces of my story, not everything, but enough. "Take table 7 next. They're good tippers." I was weaving my way back through the crowd when the atmosphere changed again. This time the shift was palpable. Heads turned toward the entrance of the VIP section. Security seemed to materialize from nowhere, earpieces in place, expressions impassive. And then I saw him. He didn't enter like I would have expected a powerful man to, with grandiosity or obvious dominance. It was quite the opposite. He stepped into the space and the space yielded to him, as though the air itself recognized something my conscious mind had yet to comprehend. Tall, with broad shoulders draped in a suit that even I could tell cost more than my yearly rent. Dark hair, cut close on the sides but longer on top. A jaw that could have been carved from marble. But it was his eyes that caught and held me. Dark, observant, missing nothing. They scanned the room once, efficiently, before he moved deeper into the VIP section, flanked by 2 men who radiated barely contained violence. I realized I had stopped walking. My tray tilted precariously. A splash of whiskey sour spilled over the edge of a glass, droplets hitting my hand. The sting snapped me back to reality. "Who's that?" I whispered to a passing waitress named Tia. She glanced over, then back at me with wide eyes. "You don't know? That's Nikolai Vasilyev. He owns this place. Well, this place and half the city." She hesitated, then added, "We don't talk about him, and we definitely don't stare." Something about her tone made my skin prickle with goosebumps. I nodded and continued to table 7, suddenly very aware of the VIP section at my back. The night progressed in its usual rhythm of drink orders, subtle insults from drunken patrons, and the constant throb of music that had become the soundtrack to my new existence. By midnight, my feet were screaming in protest, and I was counting the minutes until my shift ended at 2 a.m. "Hazel." Marco appeared at my elbow, his voice strangely subdued. "You're needed in VIP." My stomach dropped. "What? Why? I don't serve VIP." His eyes darted nervously to the elevated section. "You do tonight. Mr. Vasilyev asked for you specifically." Cold fear sliced through me. How does he even know my name? Marco didn't answer, just gestured impatiently for me to go. I looked to Danny at the bar, who gave me a concerned shrug. My pulse hammered as I approached the security guard at the velvet rope. He gave me a once-over before stepping aside. The VIP section was another world, quieter, with plush seating and private booths shielded from prying eyes. Crystal bottles glittered under subtle lighting. I was directed to the central booth, where Nikolai Vasilyev sat, now with his suit jacket removed, and his crisp white shirt rolled up at the sleeves, revealing strong forearms marked with what looked like faded scars. Up close, he was even more intimidating, not because he was trying to be, but because power emanated from him like heat from fire. His eyes found mine immediately, and I had the unsettling feeling that he'd been waiting for me, specifically. The two men I'd seen earlier sat at adjoining booths, watching the club with predatory awareness. "Mr. Vasilyev requested you," the hostess murmured, then disappeared before I could protest. I stood frozen, tray clutched to my chest like a shield. "Sit." His voice was deep, accented with something Eastern European, and it wasn't a request. "I'm supposed to be serving. Sit." This time, there was a subtle edge that made my knees bend automatically, lowering me to the seat across from him. He studied me with an intensity that made me want to crawl out of my skin. I'd seen that look before. Richard had examined me like that in the early days, before admiration turned to possession, and possession to control. "Your name is Hazel." Again, not a question. I nodded, not trusting my voice. "You've been working here 6 weeks. Before that, nothing. It's as if you appeared out of thin air." He took a slow sip from a tumbler of amber liquid. "I make it a point to know everyone who works in my establishments." My heartbeat thundered in my ears. How did he know? I'd been careful, so careful, using my middle name on applications, paying for everything in cash until I could open a new bank account. Richard couldn't find me, which meant no one should be able to. "I'm just a server," I managed. Something like amusement flickered across his face. "No one is just anything, Hazel." The way he said my name made it sound different, important somehow. "Everyone has a story. I find yours intriguing." One of his men approached, leaning down to whisper something in his ear. Nikolai's expression hardened for a moment before returning to its inscrutable calm. "It seems we have a situation that requires my attention." He stood in one fluid motion, buttoning his suit jacket. "We'll continue this another time." Relief flooded through me, quickly replaced by confusion. Continue what? We'd barely spoken. As he passed my seat, he paused, leaning down slightly. "Don't look so frightened, little bird. If I wanted to hurt you, you wouldn't have seen me coming." It wasn't reassuring. I sat there, unable to move, until the entire entourage had swept out of the club. Only then did I realize I was trembling. "What did he want?" Danny asked when I returned to the bar. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "To intimidate me, maybe," she frowned. "Be careful, Hazel. Men like that." She trailed off, but I understood. Men like that took what they wanted. Men like that didn't ask permission. I'd escaped one cage. I wasn't about to walk into another. The next morning, I woke to someone pounding on my apartment door. Groggy and disoriented, I stumbled through my tiny studio, checking the peephole before opening. It was a delivery man, holding an enormous arrangement of white roses. "I didn't order these," I said through the crack in the door, chain still fastened. He shrugged. "I just deliver 'em, lady." He thrust a clipboard at me. "Sign here." Against my better judgment, I signed and accepted the flowers. There were at least 3 dozen roses, their perfume quickly filling my small space. The card simply read, "Until next time," and my blood ran cold. How did he know where I lived? I dropped the flowers into the trash, but the scent lingered, a reminder that my carefully constructed anonymity had been shattered with insulting ease. That night, I seriously considered not going to work, but missing a shift would mean missing pay, and my meager savings wouldn't cover both rent and food. I had no choice. The club seemed different somehow, as though Nikolai Vasilyev's brief presence had altered its very atoms. Or maybe it was just me who had changed. I found myself jumping at shadows, scanning the VIP section obsessively. "He's not here." Marco told me around midnight, a knowing smirk on his face. But he will be. Saturday nights, always. I nodded numbly. 3 days. 3 days to figure out what to do, where to go. Because one thing was clear. I couldn't stay. Something about Nikolai Vasilyev had triggered every warning bell inside me. It wasn't just that he was obviously dangerous. It was the way he'd looked at me, like he could see through the careful facade I'd built, straight through to the broken pieces I'd been trying to glue back together. I'd just finished serving a bachelorette party when Tia rushed over, eyes wide. "There's a guy at the bar asking for you. Says he's your husband." The world tilted sideways. It couldn't be. Not here, not now. But it was. Richard sat at the bar, his familiar profile sending ice through my veins. He was speaking to Danny, who was looking increasingly uncomfortable. I backed away, bumping into a table. A glass toppled, shattering on the floor. The sound drew his attention, his eyes locked with mine across the crowded room, and the smile that spread across his face sent me spiraling back into memories of broken dishes, bruised wrists hidden beneath long sleeves, and apologies that meant nothing. "There you are, sweetheart," he called, rising from his seat. "I've been looking everywhere for you." I turned and ran, pushing through the crowd toward the back exit. The night air hit my lungs like a shock as I burst into the alley behind the club. Where could I go? My apartment wasn't safe. If Richard had found me at work, he'd find me there too. The sound of the door opening behind me sent me running again, but I'd only made it a few steps when headlights flooded the alley. A sleek black car with tinted windows had pulled up, blocking my escape. Trapped between Richard and an unknown threat, I froze. The car's back door opened. "Get in!" Came a voice I'd heard only once but already recognized. Nikolai Vasilyev. Richard's footsteps were getting closer. I had seconds to decide. The devil I knew or the one I didn't. I chose the unknown. I dove into the car, the door closing behind me with a soft, expensive click. Through the tinted window, I watched Richard emerge into the alley, confusion replacing the predatory look on his face as the car pulled smoothly away. "Interesting choice," Nikolai remarked from beside me, his presence filling the spacious back seat. "Most people run from me, not to me." I turned to face him, adrenaline making me reckless. "What do you want from me?" His dark eyes studied me with that same unsettling intensity. "Right now? To know why your husband makes you run like a frightened rabbit." The directness of the question startled me. "Ex-husband," I corrected automatically, "and it's none of your business." Instead of being angered by my tone, he seemed amused. "Everything in this city is my business, Hazel. Especially the things that try to hide from me." The car moved silently through the night streets, taking me further from everything familiar and deeper into a world I didn't understand. "Where are we going?" I asked, trying to keep the panic from my voice. "Somewhere safe," he replied, his gaze never leaving my face. "You look like you could use that right now." And despite everything in me that screamed this man was dangerous, I couldn't argue with his assessment. I did need safety. I just wasn't convinced I'd find it with Nikolai Vasilyev. But as the city lights blurred outside the window and his quiet, commanding presence filled the space between us, I realized I'd made a choice that would change everything. I just didn't know yet if I'd regret it. The car glided through the city like a shark through dark water. I pressed myself against the door, maintaining as much distance as possible from Nikolai, whose calm was somehow more unnerving than Richard's rage had ever been. "You're afraid," he observed, as if commenting on the weather. "I don't know you." His lips curved slightly, "and yet you chose me over him." "I chose a moving vehicle over a man who—" I stopped, unwilling to share the broken pieces of my past with this stranger. "Over a man who hurt you." Nikolai finished my sentence with such certainty that I flinched. "The question is how, and why you've been running instead of seeking protection." I laughed bitterly. "Protection? From whom? The police who told me it was my word against his? The justice system that would give him a slap on the wrist while he'd give me another broken rib?" As soon as the words escaped, I regretted them. I'd revealed too much. Nikolai's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes darkened, like storm clouds gathering. "I see." The car turned into a gated driveway, approaching what looked like a modern fortress disguised as a mansion. Floor-to-ceiling windows reflected the moonlight. and security cameras tracked our approach with mechanical precision. "Where are we?" I asked, my mouth dry. "My home." Panic surged through me. "I need to go to my apartment." "The apartment where he found you?" Nikolai shook his head. "Not safe." "How did you know he found my apartment?" "I didn't, until now." His eyes held mine, and I realized he'd tricked the confirmation out of me with insulting ease. The car stopped, and a security guard opened Nikolai's door. He stepped out, then looked back at me. "You can come inside and be safe tonight, or I can have my driver take you wherever you wish to go. Your choice, Hazel." It wasn't really a choice. Richard knew where I worked, where I lived. I had nowhere to go, no one to turn to. With a defeated sigh, I followed Nikolai. The house was even more impressive inside. High ceilings, tasteful art, and furnishings that whispered of wealth rather than shouted it. A woman in a neat uniform appeared, her eyes carefully blank as Nikolai spoke to her in what sounded like Russian. She nodded and disappeared. "Irina will prepare a room for you," he said, leading me into a living area with views of the city below. "You'll find everything you need." I stood awkwardly, arms wrapped around myself. "Why are you doing this?" "Sit." He gestured to a sofa, and I found myself obeying before I could think better of it. He poured 2 glasses of amber liquid from a crystal decanter and handed one to me. "Drink. It will help with the shock." I took a small sip, the whiskey burning a path down my throat. "You didn't answer my question." He sat across from me, unbuttoning his suit jacket with casual elegance. "Let's say I have an interest in keeping you safe. Why?" "Because rare things should be protected." I almost choked on my drink. "I'm not rare. I'm nobody." "You're wrong." His gaze pinned me in place. 6 weeks ago, you walked into my club with false papers, a middle name instead of your first, and eyes that have seen too much darkness. You work harder than anyone, never complain, and jump at shadows. You're running from something, someone. And yet you haven't left the city. He leaned forward. "Most people who run keep running. You stopped. Why?" The accuracy of his assessment left me speechless. I took another drink for courage. I was tired of running, and I had nowhere else to go. His eyes softened fractionally. "And now?" "Now I'll have to disappear again," I whispered, the realization settling like lead in my stomach. Another city, another identity, another life built from scratch. Nikolai shook his head. "No." "No?" I echoed, confused. "You won't run again. You'll stay here under my protection." A hysterical laugh bubbled up. "I don't even know you. For all I know, you're worse than him." "I am worse than him," Nikolai said simply. "But not to you." His words sent a shiver down my spine, not entirely from fear. "Why would you protect me? What do you get out of it?" He studied me for a long moment. "Perhaps I see something of myself in you. Or perhaps I simply don't like men who abuse their power over those weaker than themselves." His lip curled slightly. "It shows a fundamental weakness of character." Irina reappeared, speaking softly to Nikolai. He nodded, then turned to me. "Your room is ready. We'll discuss the details of your situation in the morning." "Details?" I asked, suddenly wary again. "Your employment, your living arrangements, your security." He stood, indicating our conversation was over. "Irina will show you to your room. Try to rest." As if I could rest in the home of a man who was, by his own admission, dangerous. But I followed Irina through the sprawling house to a guest suite larger than my entire apartment. She showed me the bathroom, the closet already stocked with brand new clothes in my size, and the panel that controlled the lights and temperature. "How does he know my size?" I asked, fingering a silk blouse that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Irina's face remained impassive. "Mr. Vasilyev notices everything." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "He is a good man, in his way." "You will be safe here." After she left, I explored the room, trying to process the surreal turn my night had taken. The bathroom was stocked with expensive toiletries. The bed looked like a cloud, and the view from the windows showed the glittering cityscape below. It was beautiful, comfortable, and utterly terrifying. I was in a Mafia boss's house, a man who apparently knew everything about me while I knew nothing about him, except that he wielded enough power to make me disappear if he wanted to. Despite my exhaustion, sleep seemed impossible. I paced, showered, tried on some of the new clothes, which fit perfectly, and finally curled up in an armchair by the window, watching the city lights blur through my tears. I must have dozed off because I woke to sunlight streaming through the windows. For a moment, I didn't remember where I was. Then it all came crashing back. Richard finding me, fleeing into Nikolai's car, this strange gilded cage I now found myself in. A light knock at the door made me jump. "Breakfast is served on the terrace when you're ready," Irina announced. "Mr. Vasilyev is waiting." I quickly dressed in jeans and a simple blouse from the closet, ran a brush through my hair, and followed Irina through the house. The morning light revealed details I'd missed last night: security panels, cameras discreetly tucked into corners, men in suits speaking quietly into earpieces. The terrace overlooked manicured gardens that gave way to a view of the city beyond. Nikolai sat at a table laden with food, reading something on a tablet. He looked up as I approached, and I was struck again by how intimidating he was even in casual clothes. A black sweater that emphasized his broad shoulders and dark jeans that somehow looked tailored. "Did you sleep?" he asked, setting the tablet aside. "Not really." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Eat. Everything is better with food in your stomach." I sat reluctantly, taking a slice of toast and some fruit. "What happens now?" "Now we talk honestly." He poured coffee into a cup and pushed it toward me. "Your husband," "ex-husband," I corrected again. "Your ex-husband," he amended, "is looking for you. He found you once. He'll find you again unless steps are taken." "I can leave the city," I suggested, though the thought of starting over again made me want to weep. Nikolai shook his head. "Running isn't the answer. Not anymore." "Then what is?" "Making him understand that you're no longer available to him." The way he said it sent a chill down my spine. "What does that mean?" Nikolai took a sip of his coffee, watching me over the rim. "It means you'll stay here, under my protection. You'll continue working at the club, but as my personal guest, not as a server. Richard will learn that you've aligned yourself with someone he cannot challenge." "Aligned myself?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You're talking about me like I'm a chess piece." "In this city, everyone is a chess piece," he replied calmly. "The difference is whether you're a pawn or a queen. I'm offering to make you a queen. By what? Pretending to be your girlfriend?" I scoffed. His dark eyes held mine, by becoming mine. My mouth went dry. "I don't belong to anyone. Not Richard, not you, not anyone." Something like approval flashed across his face. "Good. Remember that fire when he comes for you again." "You think he will?" "I know he will. Men like him don't let go easily." I pushed my plate away, my appetite gone. "Why are you doing this? Really?" Nikolai studied me for a long moment. "Let's just say I recognize something in you worth protecting. And what do you want in return?" Nothing came without a price. Richard had taught me that lesson well. "For now, nothing." He stood, straightening his sweater. "Come. There's something I want to show you." Curious despite myself, I followed him back through the house and down to a lower level. He led me to a door with a keypad, entered a code, and pushed it open. The room beyond took my breath away. It was a library, with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, comfortable reading nooks, and a fireplace large enough to stand in. Sunlight streamed through skylights, illuminating thousands of volumes. "You like books," Nikolai said. Not a question. I nodded, stunned by the beauty of the space. "How did you know?" "You always have one in your bag, different one each shift." The fact that he'd noticed such a small detail was unnerving. I wandered along the shelves, trailing my fingers over leather-bound spines. "This is my sanctuary," Nikolai said quietly. "Few people are allowed in here." I turned to find him watching me, his expression softer than I'd seen it. "Why show me?" "Everyone needs a safe place. While you're here, this can be yours." The gesture was unexpectedly touching. "Thank you." Days passed in a strange, suspended reality. I continued working at Eclipse, but everything had changed. I no longer served drinks. Instead, I sat in the VIP section beside Nikolai, watching the club from his vantage point. The other employees regarded me with a mixture of curiosity and wariness, as if I'd crossed an invisible boundary. In some ways I had. Each night, Nikolai's driver would take me back to his mansion, where I slept in the guest suite that was slowly accumulating my belongings. During the days, I was free to roam the grounds or lose myself in the library, though I was never truly alone. Security personnel maintained a discreet distance, visible reminders that I lived in a world of calculated risks and constant vigilance. Nikolai himself was an enigma. Sometimes he would join me in the library, working silently at a desk while I read. Other times, I wouldn't see him for a day or more. He never explained his absences, and I never asked. The less I knew about his business, the safer I felt. It was during one of these quiet moments in the library, almost 2 weeks into my strange new arrangement, that I finally gathered the courage to ask the question that had been burning in my mind. "Has Richard tried to find me again?" Nikolai looked up from his papers, his expression unreadable. "Yes." My heart stuttered. "When? Where?" "He came to the club 3 nights ago. He was intercepted before he could enter." "Why didn't you tell me?" Nikolai set his pen down deliberately. "Would knowing have made you feel safer or more afraid?" I considered this. "I don't like being kept in the dark." "Noted." He studied me for a moment. "He also went to your former apartment. Twice. And he's been asking questions about me." A cold knot formed in my stomach. "What kind of questions?" "The kind that will lead him nowhere useful." Nikolai's tone was dismissive. "He's becoming desperate. Desperate is when he's most dangerous," I whispered. Memories flooding back. A fist through drywall inches from my head. A coffee mug hurled across the kitchen. Fingers digging into my arms hard enough to leave bruises. Something in my expression must have revealed my thoughts, because Nikolai's face hardened. "Tell me what he did to you." It wasn't a request, but after years of forced silence, words failed me. Nikolai moved to sit beside me on the sofa, close, but not touching. "Hazel, I need to know what I'm dealing with." I took a deep breath. It started small. Criticisms. Checking my phone. Getting angry if I was late. Then controlling what I wore, who I saw. I stared at my hands, twisting in my lap. The first time he hit me was after a dinner party. I'd laughed too much at his friend's joke, apparently. He apologized for weeks afterward. Nikolai remained silent, but I could feel the tension radiating from him. It got worse. He'd apologize, promise to change, be loving for weeks. Then, something would trigger him. A burnt dinner. A call from my sister, the neighbor looking at me too long. My voice dropped to a whisper. The last time he put me in the hospital. 3 broken ribs and a concussion. He told the doctors I fell down the stairs. They pretended to believe him. "And that's when you ran." I nodded. While he was at work, I took cash from his wallet, packed 1 bag, and disappeared. No credit cards, no phone, nothing he could trace. Yet he found you. He's persistent, and he has friends in the police department. Nikolai's jaw tightened. "And now he's learning about me." "I'm sorry," I said automatically. "I've brought my problems to your doorstep." "No," he said sharply. He brought his problems to my doorstep when he pursued what's mine. The possessive statement should have alarmed me, but instead, a complicated warmth spread through my chest. "I'm not yours," I reminded him softly. His dark eyes held mine. "You're under my protection. That makes you mine in the eyes of this city." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression closing off. "I have business to attend to. We'll continue this conversation later." I watched him leave, confusion swirling inside me. What exactly was happening between us? Was I trading one form of captivity for another, or was this something else entirely? Later that evening, I was getting ready for another night at the club when Irina knocked on my door. "Mr. Vasilyev says you will not be going to the club tonight," she announced, her accent more pronounced than usual. Alarm prickled along my skin. "Why not?" "He did not say, only that you should stay here. He will not be home tonight." The subtext was clear. Stay put. Stay safe. But after nearly 2 weeks of compliance, something in me rebelled. I was tired of being a passive character in my own life story, first controlled by Richard, now protected by Nikolai. "Thank you, Irina," I said politely, already planning my escape. I waited until she left, then changed into jeans and a sweater, tucking my hair under a baseball cap I found in the closet. The security in Nikolai's house was designed to keep people out, not in, but I still had to be careful of the watchful eyes of his staff. I slipped out through a side door during a shift change I'd observed over the past week, making my way to the road that led away from the estate. From there, I called a rideshare using the new phone Nikolai had given me, a phone I was suddenly unsure if I should be using, given it might be tracked. Too late for second thoughts. I needed air, space, freedom, even if just for a few hours. The driver dropped me off downtown, not far from Eclipse but away from its immediate vicinity. The night was cool, the streets busy with people enjoying the evening. For the first time in weeks, I felt anonymous, invisible in the best possible way. I wandered into a small bookstore cafe, ordered a tea, and settled into a corner chair with a novel I'd pulled randomly from a shelf. The normalcy was intoxicating, just a woman reading a book, not a fugitive wife, not a mafia boss's, whatever I was. I was so absorbed in this fantasy of ordinary life that I didn't notice the door opening, didn't sense the danger until a familiar voice sliced through my temporary peace. Hiding in plain sight. Smart, but not smart enough. Richard. He stood a few feet away, wearing the charming smile that had once made me fall in love with him, before I understood the darkness it concealed. He looked the same. Handsome in that conventional corporate way. His blonde hair perfectly styled. His blue eyes cold despite his smile. "Leave me alone," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. He glanced around the quiet bookstore, then took the seat across from me. "Is that any way to greet your husband after all this time?" "Ex-husband." His smile tightened. "The divorce isn't final yet. You left before we could settle things." "There's nothing to settle. I don't want anything from you, except your freedom." He leaned forward, dropping his voice. "You embarrassed me, Hazel. Leaving like that. People talk. I don't care. You should." His eyes hardened. "Especially now that you're sleeping with a criminal." I flinched. "I'm not—" "Don't lie to me." His voice rose slightly, drawing a curious glance from the barista. Richard immediately composed himself, the mask of civility sliding back into place. "Everyone knows you're living with Vasilyev. Do you have any idea who he is? What he does?" "I know he doesn't hurt me," I said pointedly. Richard's jaw worked. "I made mistakes. I've admitted that. I've changed." The familiar refrain, "I've changed. It'll be different, I promise," echoed hollowly. "It doesn't matter if you've changed. I have. You can't hide behind him forever. I'm not hiding." "No?" Richard's smile turned cruel. "Then what are you doing sneaking out alone tonight? Does he even know you're here?" Ice slid down my spine. He'd been watching me, following me. The illusion of freedom shattered like glass. "What do you want, Richard?" "I want you to come home, where you belong." "That's never going to happen." His eyes narrowed. "We'll see about that. Your new boyfriend has enemies, Hazel. Powerful ones. When he falls, and he will, what do you think will happen to his little pet?" Before I could respond, the bookstore door opened again. 2 men in suits entered, scanning the room with practiced efficiency before their eyes landed on us. My heart sank. Nikolai's men, which meant he knew I'd left. Richard followed my gaze, his expression darkening when he recognized the threat. "Think about what I said," he murmured, rising from his seat. "This isn't over." He walked past Nikolai's men with his head held high, brushing shoulders with one of them deliberately. The man turned, his hand moving slightly toward his jacket, but his companion gripped his arm in warning. They let Richard leave, their focus shifting to me. The taller one approached my table. "Ms. Hazel, Mr. Vasilyev requests your return." Not an order, but not really a request either. "I just wanted some air," I said, gathering my things. "He understands, but it's not safe." As if to emphasize his point, he opened his jacket slightly, revealing a holstered gun. My stomach dropped. The reality of Nikolai's world, of the world I'd entered, hit me with renewed force. The ride back to the estate passed in tense silence. My brief taste of freedom had turned to ash, leaving only fear and uncertainty in its wake. What would Nikolai do? Would he be angry? Would he wash his hands of me and my problems? And why did that possibility hurt more than it should? The mansion was lit up against the night sky, security more visible than usual. As we pulled up to the entrance, I was surprised to see Nikolai himself waiting on the steps, his posture rigid, his face a controlled mask that did nothing to hide the storm in his eyes. I stepped from the car, bracing myself for his reaction. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice deceptively calm. "No." "Did he threaten you?" I hesitated, unsure how much Nikolai already knew. "Not directly." His jaw tightened. "Inside. Now." I followed him through the foyer and into his study, a room I'd glimpsed but never entered before. Unlike the warmth of the library, this space exuded power and control. Dark wood, leather furniture, and walls lined with monitors displaying security feeds from various locations. "Sit," he commanded, pouring himself a drink with controlled precision that betrayed his anger. I perched on the edge of a leather armchair. "How did you know where I was? Your phone, the car, the cameras outside." He turned to face me, drink in hand. "Did you really think I wouldn't have safeguards in place? So I am a prisoner. No, you're protected. There's a difference." "Is there?" I challenged, my own anger rising. "I've spent the last 6 months trying to regain control of my life, only to find myself controlled by another man." Nikolai's eyes flashed. "I am nothing like him." "Aren't you? You track my movements. You decide where I go, what I do. The only difference is you haven't hit me yet." As soon as the words left my mouth, I regretted them. Something raw and painful crossed Nikolai's face before his expression hardened again. "I have never raised my hand to a woman in my life," he said, his accent thickening with emotion. "And I never will." "I'm sorry," I whispered, ashamed of my outburst. "That was unfair." He set his glass down untouched. "What did he say to you tonight?" I recounted my conversation with Richard, watching Nikolai's expression darken at the mention of enemies and threats. "He's been looking into you," I finished. "He said you would fall, and when you did." "He believes I'm vulnerable," Nikolai mused, pacing slowly. "Interesting. Are you?" I asked before I could stop myself. "Vulnerable?" His eyes met mine. "Everyone is vulnerable to something, Hazel." The way he said it made me wonder if he was talking about more than just business rivals or legal threats. "He's never going to stop," I said quietly. "As long as I'm with you, he'll keep coming." "Is that why you left tonight? To protect me?" Nikolai's tone was incredulous. "No, I left because I needed to breathe, to remember what it felt like to make my own decisions." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I understand the need for freedom. More than you might think." "You do?" Nikolai moved to sit across from me, his posture less rigid. "I was born in a small village outside St. Petersburg. My father was a drunk who beat my mother and us children. When I was 12, he broke my arm for stealing food from the pantry." His voice was matter-of-fact, but I could see old pain in his eyes. "That night, my mother put us on a train to Moscow to stay with her sister. She promised to follow when she could." "Did she?" I asked softly. "No." "He killed her 2 days later." My hand flew to my mouth. "Nikolai, I'm so sorry. I tell you this not for sympathy, but so you understand. I know what it is to be powerless, to live in fear, and I know what it is to vow never to be powerless again." His dark eyes held mine. "Richard is a coward who preys on those weaker than himself. I am not like him." "I know," I said, and was surprised to realize I meant it. "But you're right about one thing," he continued. "You need freedom, control over your own life." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that tomorrow we will make arrangements for you to have your own apartment. Secured, of course, but yours. You'll have a driver and security detail, but they will take you wherever you wish to go." Hope fluttered in my chest. "Really?" "With conditions," he added. "You call if you're going somewhere unexpected. You don't go out alone at night, And you continue to appear with me at the club regularly. Why the club? Because Richard needs to understand that while you may not be living under my roof, you are still under my protection. I considered his offer. It wasn't complete freedom, but it was more than I'd had in years. With Richard, or since fleeing him. I accept your conditions. Something like relief crossed his face. Good, but I have conditions of my own, I added, surprising myself with my boldness. Nikolai raised an eyebrow. Do you? Yes. I want to know more about you. The real you, not just the Mafia boss everyone fears. And I want honesty between us. No more finding out from others that Richard came looking for me. A small smile curved his lips. You drive a hard bargain, Hazel. Do we have a deal? He extended his hand. We have a deal. I took his hand, expecting a brief handshake. Instead, he held it a moment longer than necessary, his thumb brushing over my knuckles in a gesture that sent warmth spreading up my arm. The next day, Nikolai was true to his word. He took me to see 3 different apartments, all in buildings he owned, all with security systems that would make Fort Knox envious. I chose the smallest one, a sunny 1-bedroom with large windows and a balcony overlooking a quiet courtyard. You don't like the penthouse? Nikolai asked, genuine confusion in his voice as I signed the lease for the modest apartment. I smiled. This feels more like me. He nodded, accepting my choice without further question. It will be ready tomorrow. Tonight, you'll stay at the mansion one last time. That night at Eclipse, I sat beside Nikolai in the VIP section as usual, but something had shifted between us. There was an ease that hadn't been there before, a comfortable silence that required no filling. Tell me something about yourself, I said during a lull in the music. Something no one else knows. He considered the request, sipping his drink. I wanted to be a pianist when I was young. Really? Do you still play? Sometimes, when I need to think. I tried to imagine his strong, scarred hands moving gently over piano keys. I'd like to hear you play sometime. His eyes met mine. Perhaps you will. The moment was interrupted by one of his men leaning down to whisper something in his ear. Nikolai's expression hardened instantly. What is it? I asked when the man had moved away. Your husband is outside, demanding to see you. My heart leapt into my throat. Here? Now? Yes. And he's not alone. Before I could process this, Nikolai was standing, buttoning his suit jacket with deliberate calm. Stay here. Dmitri will remain with you. Where are you going? To have a conversation. Nikolai, don't... But he was already moving through the club, his security team falling in around him like a well-choreographed dance. I started to follow, only to find my path blocked by Dmitri, a mountain of a man whose stoic expression brooked no argument. Please, Ms. Hazel, stay seated. Frustrated but knowing I had no choice, I sank back into the plush VIP sofa. My nerves stretched to breaking point. The minutes crawled by, each one an eternity of imagined confrontations and violence. When Nikolai finally returned, his appearance was impeccable. Not a hair out of place, not a wrinkle in his suit, but there was something in his eyes, a cold satisfaction that sent a shiver down my spine. What happened? I asked as he resumed his seat beside me. We reached an understanding. What kind of understanding? Nikolai signaled for a fresh drink. The kind that ensures he won't bother you again. Cold fear gripped me. You didn't... kill him? Nikolai's voice was low, amused. No, Hazel. Despite what you may think, I don't solve all my problems that way. Relief washed over me, followed quickly by suspicion. Then how? Let's just say I made him an offer he couldn't refuse. The movie reference would have made me smile under different circumstances. What kind of offer? Nikolai studied me for a moment, as if deciding how much to share. Information is power, Hazel. I've known about Richard's indiscretions for some time. Financial ones, specifically. The kind his employers would be very interested to learn about. You blackmailed him, I realized. I presented him with options. He chose the one that allows him to remain employed and out of prison. Nikolai's smile didn't reach his eyes. In exchange, he signs your divorce papers, relinquishes any claim to you or your property, and leaves the city permanently. I stared at him, stunned. Just like that? Just like that. I don't believe it, I whispered. It can't be that easy. It wasn't easy. Nikolai corrected. It was the result of weeks of investigation, evidence gathering, and planning. I've had people watching him since the night you got into my car. The realization that Nikolai had been working to free me from Richard, even while I'd been chafing against his protection, hit me like a physical blow. Why would you do that for me? His eyes held mine, intense and unreadable. Because you deserve to be free. The emotion that swelled in my chest was overwhelming, gratitude mixed with something deeper, more dangerous. Without thinking, I leaned forward and pressed my lips to his cheek, a chaste but heartfelt gesture. "Thank you," I whispered against his skin. When I pulled back, the look in his eyes made my breath catch. Desire, yes, but also surprise, as if my simple gesture had caught the unflappable Mafia boss off guard. For a moment, I thought he might kiss me properly. Instead, he reached out to brush a strand of hair from my face, his touch feather-light. "You should get some rest," he said softly. "Tomorrow is a new beginning." True to Nikolai's word, my new apartment was ready the following day. The movers brought what few possessions I'd accumulated during my stay at his mansion, along with several unexpected additions. Books from his library that I'd enjoyed, a state-of-the-art security system that connected directly to his team, and a sleek grand piano that dominated my small living room. "I don't understand," I said, running my fingers over the polished ebony surface. "You said you wanted to hear me play," Nikolai replied, watching me with that intense gaze that seemed to see straight through to my soul. "This way, I have a reason to visit." The implication that he needed a reason sent a complicated mixture of emotions swirling through me. "You're always welcome here," I said softly. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "We'll see if you still feel that way after a week of true freedom." But freedom, I was discovering, was a relative concept. True, I had my own space now. A place where I could breathe, make my own decisions, come and go as I pleased within the boundaries of our agreement. Yet I found myself looking forward to the evenings at Eclipse, sitting beside Nikolai in the VIP section, learning the subtle languages of his world. I found myself missing the quiet mornings in his library when he was called away on business. I found myself wondering what he was doing, thinking, feeling when we were apart. It was during one such evening at the club, nearly a month after moving into my apartment, that everything changed again. I was sitting alone in the VIP section, Nikolai having stepped away to deal with some business matter, when Danny appeared at my side. My former colleague had been promoted to bartending the VIP section, a move I suspected had as much to do with keeping a friendly face near me as with her skills. "Your bodyguard's slipping," she joked, setting a fresh drink in front of me, "leaving you all alone with the wolves." I smiled, glancing at Dmitri, who stood at a discreet distance, his watchful eyes never leaving me. "I'm hardly alone." Danny followed my gaze and laughed. "Fair point. Still, it's the first time I've seen you without Nikolai glued to your side in weeks." "He's not glued to my side," I protested, feeling heat rise to my cheeks. "Honey, that man doesn't let you out of his sight when you're here, and the way he looks at you," she gave a theatrical shiver. "It's intense." I took a sip of my drink to hide my reaction. "It's not like that." Danny raised an eyebrow. "No? You live in his building. You spend every night here in his section. His men follow you everywhere. If it's not like that, what is it like?" I had no answer. What was it like between Nikolai and me? We'd developed a strange, intimate friendship, sharing meals, conversations, even laughter, but he'd never crossed the line into anything more physical than an occasional touch of his hand on the small of my back, guiding me through the club. "It's complicated," I finally said. Danny snorted. "With him? I bet." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Just be careful, Hazel. Men like Nikolai Vasiliev don't do casual relationships. When he decides you're his completely." Before I could respond, a commotion near the club entrance drew our attention. The crowd was parting like the Red Sea, making way for a striking woman in a red dress that clung to her statuesque figure like a second skin. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe style that emphasized her sharp cheekbones and full lips. She moved with the confidence of someone who knew exactly the effect she had on a room, and she was headed straight for the VIP section. Dmitri stepped forward, blocking her path, but she said something to him that made him hesitate, then reluctantly step aside. She climbed the few steps to the VIP area, her eyes scanning the space until they landed on me. "So," she said in a Russian accent thicker than Nikolai's, "you are the one who has captured my brother's attention. Brother." The word echoed in my mind as I studied her face, suddenly seeing the resemblance, the same dark eyes, the same proud bearing. "I'm Hazel," I said, extending my hand. She ignored it, choosing instead to slide into the seat across from me, her calculating gaze taking in every detail of my appearance. "Anya Vasilyeva," she introduced herself. "Where is Nikolai?" "Handling some business. He'll be back soon." She made a dismissive gesture. "Business? Always business. And now he has a new distraction." The way she said the word made it sound like an insult. I straightened my spine. "I'm not a distraction." Her perfectly shaped eyebrow arched. "No? Then what are you exactly? His girlfriend? His lover? His charity case?" Each suggestion stung more than the last. The truth was, I didn't know what I was to Nikolai. Not really, but I wouldn't let this woman, sister or not, belittle whatever existed between us. "I'm his friend," I said firmly, "and I don't appreciate your tone." And to my surprise, Anya laughed, a genuine sound of amusement. "She has spine, this one," she said, as if to herself. "Perhaps that is what he sees in you." Before I could respond, Nikolai appeared at the edge of the VIP section, his expression darkening as he took in the scene before him. "Anya," he said, his voice carefully controlled, "this is unexpected." She rose with fluid grace, air-kissing both his cheeks. "Brother, you've been avoiding my calls." "I've been busy." "So I see." Her eyes flicked meaningfully to me. Nikolai's jaw tightened. "Hazel, would you excuse us? I need to speak with my sister privately." I nodded, gathering my purse. "Of course." As I passed him, Nikolai caught my hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "I won't be long," he promised, his voice soft enough that only I could hear. I retreated to the bar, where Danny immediately pounced. "That's his sister. She looks terrifying." "She is, a little," I admitted, watching as Nikolai and Anya engaged in what appeared to be a heated conversation, their rapid Russian making it impossible to understand even if I could have heard them over the music. "Family drama?" Danny asked, sliding a glass of water toward me. "I guess. I didn't even know he had a sister." Danny raised her eyebrows. "There's probably a lot you don't know about him." Her words echoed uncomfortably in my mind as I watched Nikolai and Anya. She was right. For all the time we'd spent together, for all the conversations we'd had, there were vast regions of Nikolai's life that remained a mystery to me. His business dealings, his past, the true extent of his power and how he wielded it. Did I really know him at all? The question haunted me as I watched them argue. Nikolai's normally impassive face was animated with emotion, anger, frustration, and something that looked almost like pleading. Anya remained cool, her responses making his expression darken further. Finally she stood, smoothing her dress with a decisive gesture. She said something that made Nikolai's entire body go rigid, then leaned in to kiss his cheek before turning to leave. As she passed the bar, her eyes met mine briefly, a cryptic smile playing at her lips. Nikolai remained seated for several long moments, his expression closed and distant. When he finally looked up and saw me watching him, something in his face softened. He beckoned me back with a slight tilt of his head. "Is everything okay?" I asked as I rejoined him. "Family matters," he replied vaguely. "Nothing for you to worry about." But the tension in his shoulders and the shadows in his eyes told a different story. I placed my hand over his on the table. "You can talk to me, you know, if you want to." He turned his hand to clasp mine, his thumb tracing circles on my wrist. "Not here. Not tonight." His gaze softened. "Let me take you home." The ride to my apartment was quiet. Nikolai lost in thought beside me. I watched the city lights blur past the window, wondering what secrets his sister's visit had stirred up. When we reached my building, I expected him to say goodnight in the car as he usually did. Instead, he stepped out with me. "May I come up?" he asked, a vulnerability in his voice I'd never heard before. I nodded, leading him through the lobby to the elevator. We rode up in silence, the air between us charged with unspoken words. Inside my apartment, Nikolai moved to the window, staring out at the city lights. I gave him space, busying myself with making tea. Sensing he needed time to gather his thoughts, when I brought him a steaming mug, he accepted it with a grateful nod, but set it aside untouched. "My sister brings news from Russia," he finally said. "Our uncle is dying." "I'm sorry," I offered, unsure how else to respond. "Don't be. He's not a good man." Nikolai's voice was hard, but he is family, and he is the head of our family business there. Understanding dawned, and now they want you to come back, not just come back, take his place. His eyes met mine, dark and conflicted. "Return to Russia permanently." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Oh, Anya thinks I should go. That it's my duty. That the American experiment, as she calls it, has gone on long enough." I swallowed against the sudden tightness in my throat. "And what do you think?" Nikolai turned back to the window. "I left Russia for a reason, Hazel. I built something here. Something that's mine. Something separate from the old ways. The old blood. But it's still the family business," I said softly. He nodded. "Different country, different methods. But yes, at its core, it's still power and control." "When would you have to leave?" "Soon, a month, perhaps less," I nodded, trying to process what this meant. Nikolai leaving, going back to Russia, leaving me behind. "Hazel." His voice pulled me from my spiraling thoughts. He'd moved closer, standing just inches away. "Ask me to stay." My heart stuttered. "What?" "Ask me to stay, and I will." His eyes bore into mine, intense and vulnerable all at once. "Anya is right about one thing. I have been distracted, by you, from the moment you walked into my club with your false papers and haunted eyes. Nikolai, I told myself I was protecting you, that it was about keeping you safe from Richard. But the truth is far more selfish." His hand came up to cup my cheek. "I wanted you close to me. I wanted you in my world, and now I can't imagine my world without you in it." My pulse raced at his touch, at his words. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I love you, Hazel. That I've loved you from the first moment I saw you, balancing that tray of drinks with such determined grace." His thumb brushed across my lower lip. "And I'm saying that if you ask me to stay, I will turn my back on Russia, on my family obligations, on everything for you." Tears blurred my vision. "I can't ask you to do that." "You can," he insisted. "You're the only one who can." I shook my head. "No, that's not fair to you or to me." Hurt flashed across his face. "You don't feel the same." "That's not it," I said quickly, catching his hand as he started to withdraw. "I do feel the same. I've been falling in love with you for weeks, maybe from that first night in your car when you offered me safety instead of taking advantage." Hope rekindled in his eyes. "Then why?" "Because I don't want to be the reason you abandon your family," I explained. "I don't want to be another obligation, another person making demands on you. You could never be that," he said fiercely. "I would be, eventually." I took a deep breath. "And I don't want to stay here without you, living in your building, protected by your men, waiting for your occasional visits from Russia." Understanding dawned in his expression. "What are you suggesting?" "Take me with you," I said, the words tumbling out before I could reconsider. "If you have to go back to Russia, take me with you." Nikolai stared at me, shock evident on his face. "Russia isn't like here, Hazel. It would be dangerous. The life there, my life there, would be harder, darker." "I know. You'd be leaving everything behind." I laughed softly. "What would I be leaving? A job at a nightclub? An apartment I've lived in for a month? I've already left my old life behind once. I can do it again." "For me?" His voice was hushed, disbelieving. "For us," I corrected. "But only if it's what you truly want, only if going back is the right decision for you, not just out of obligation." Nikolai pulled me against him, his arms encircling me with a gentleness that belied his strength. "I want you with me," he murmured against my hair. "Wherever I am, whatever I'm doing, I want you by my side." I tilted my face up to his. "Then take me with you." His lips found mine, tentative at first. then with growing intensity as I responded eagerly. All the weeks of tension, of growing closeness without crossing this final line, culminated in a kiss that left us both breathless. When we finally parted, he rested his forehead against mine. "Are you sure about this? About me?" "I'm not a good man, Hazel. You're good to me," I said simply. "And that's all that matters." He shook his head, wonder in his eyes. "How did I find you?" "I walked into your club with false papers, remember?" I teased, echoing his earlier words. His smile was transformative, lighting his entire face in a way I'd never seen before. Best hiring decision I ever made. 3 weeks later, I stood in Nikolai's mansion, our mansion now, watching as the staff packed the last of our essentials for the move to Russia. My new passport, bearing my real first name and Nikolai's last name, was tucked safely in my purse. The small private ceremony had taken place the previous weekend, with only Danny and a few of Nikolai's closest associates in attendance. "Having second thoughts?" Nikolai asked, coming up behind me and wrapping his arms around my waist. I leaned back against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "No, just thinking about how much has changed, for the better, I hope." I turned in his arms to face him, definitely for the better. 6 months ago, I'd been trapped in a marriage that was slowly killing me, both physically and spiritually. I'd escaped with nothing but the clothes on my back and a desperate determination to survive. Now I was embarking on a new adventure, with a man who, despite his dangerous world, had shown me nothing but respect, protection, and eventually, love. "Your sister called," I mentioned. "She's arranged for the Moscow house to be ready when we arrive." Nikolai nodded, a hint of tension in his jaw. "Anya is coming around to the idea of you." I laughed. "Is that what we're calling her thinly veiled threats and suspicious glares?" His lips twitched. "She's protective." "So are you," I pointed out, rising on tiptoes to kiss him softly. "It seems to be a family trait." Later that night, as we lay in bed discussing the details of our imminent departure, Nikolai's phone rang. He checked the screen, his expression immediately turning grave. "I need to take this," he said, pressing a quick kiss to my forehead before slipping out of bed. I watched him walk to the window, his powerful frame silhouetted against the night sky as he spoke in rapid Russian. Even now, there were parts of his world I wasn't privy to, decisions and actions that happened in shadows I couldn't penetrate, but I was no longer afraid of those shadows. I had walked through my own darkness and emerged stronger. Whatever challenges awaited us in Russia, whatever difficulties came with being the wife of a man like Nikolai Vasilyev, I would face them with the same determination that had carried me this far. When he returned to bed, I curled against him, breathing in his familiar scent. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Just some last business to settle before we leave," he assured me, his arms tightening around me. "Nothing for you to worry about." I believed him. Not because I thought he would never lie to me, I wasn't that naive, but because I trusted that whatever he kept from me was meant to protect, not to harm. "I love you," I whispered into the darkness. His lips found mine, gentle yet possessive. "You are my heart, Hazel Vasilyeva, the only truly good thing I've ever had." As I drifted toward sleep in the safety of his embrace, I reflected on the strange path that had led me here. From a broken marriage to a nightclub job, from a chance encounter with a Mafia boss to becoming his wife. It wasn't the life I had imagined for myself, but it was a life I had chosen freely, with open eyes and a whole heart. And as Nikolai's breathing deepened beside me, his body relaxed in sleep in a way it rarely was in waking, I knew with absolute certainty that I had made the right choice. Whatever came next, Russia, his family business, the inevitable challenges of our unconventional union, we would face it together. I had escaped one life only to find another, more unexpected one waiting for me. And this time, I wasn't running away. I was running toward something greater than I had ever dared to hope for. A love powerful enough to transcend the darkness of our pasts, and strong enough to sustain us through whatever the future might hold.